Everybody, welcome back to the 2023 Bochum Pokemon Regional Championships. My name's Ben Kiriakou, joined on the desk here by Lou Akjosh Chromie, and it's been a fantastic tour so far. A brilliant set of games that have led us here to the top 4 of this competition.
Who would believe it? We had a fantastic day one yesterday with an epic 9 rounds of Swiss, battled it through a further 5 today, had our top 8. We already had that amazing feature match where unfortunately for Feist wasn't able to get the double against Alex Soto. He was able to get his redemption just like Eric Rios did earlier in his match, and it really is all about those returns. So Alex Soto obviously advancing into the top 4 along with 3 other players, and we will be bringing you both of those matches on this broadcast. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. It's going to be so good to see how these players are going to adjust to these sort of rematches happening throughout the tournament. And it's so good to see that the match you mentioned earlier, David Kotesh versus Eric Rios, happening in day 1. Then again in day 2, not featured in the top 8, unfortunately, for the third finale, because they still have a little bit of a best of 3 to figure out there between the two of them.
Yeah, some scores to settle, and unfortunately Eric did bubble out of that top 8 cut. I believe got in 9th place, so heartbreak for him, but it was amazing to catch up with him earlier on a very short but sweet interview. But the key things that he took away from it was saying that, you know, if you're ever in that situation where you maybe think you're down and out, the chips are against you, it's not going to be your matchup, it's not going to be your day, believe in yourself, stay calm, be confident, and then who knows what will happen. And that's advice I think I'd recommend to any Pokemon trainer out there.
And it's what we're seeing in action right now, Eric being able to get the win over David in the second best of 3 that they had, but also the second best of 3 between Alex Soto and, of course, Feist Ashfaq, who was able to defeat Alex Soto in the day 2 Swiss, but also then coming back and Alex being able to take the victory 2-0 as well.
I know, incredible record there, and I really want to talk a little bit more about Alex's team, because we've harped on about the Paradox Pokemon throughout this broadcast, and I think the key thing that Alex has done is, obviously, as we've acknowledged, not brought any Paradox Pokemon to his team. He's kept that same 6 that got him that second place finish in Liverpool. He's now in top 4. It's only this match, one more, to actually go one step further in order to get that champion title. But first of all, he's got to battle it out in top 4 to get into that grand finals.
And no stranger to a grand final is Alex Soto. He's been in the top 2 of 2 regionals so far, really itching to get that final victory in the grand finals, and will be battling out, of course, in the top 4 to be able to do that. In the meantime, we're going to be having a quick look at the bracket to see what's led us up to this point in the top 8 with, as we saw in the previous round of the stream, Feist unable to defeat Alex Soto, and Alex going into the top 4 slot.
Yes, we still have to find out who Alex will be facing in that top 4, but if we take a look at the right-hand side of the bracket, the top 4 match has already been determined. Aurélien has been able to claim victory over Marco Silva, and Markus Stadter, carrying that flag for Germany in a German showdown against a fellow competitor, was able to be victorious in a best-of-3 set, and will be now facing Aurélien in top 4.
I'm really looking forward to seeing this match. We haven't seen Aurélien on the stream since day 1 of the competition, where they were victorious against their opponent. I think it was quite early in the day that we saw them, so a lot of happened since then, and of course doing very well, making it to this top 4, but a really strong opponent in Markus Stadter, no stranger to the top cuts, being able to get to the top 4 of the World Championships a few years back, as well as having multiple wins in other lower level competitions to his name.
Yeah, Marcus with regional and national wins on his belt. Aurélien, of course, a player that we've talked about a lot, having come through seniors divisions, recently leveled up to masters, and is certainly carving out a name for Aurélien here, because Aurélien at the end of the day did so well in Oceania as well. Top 16 finish at your first internationals of the 2023 season, and then to bring it here to the top 4 at Bochum. And I think that really is a testament to the kind of confidence and calmness, like Eric Rios was talking about, that you have coming into this kind of masters level arena.
And what's really impressive about that is that the jet lag, being able to like travel all the way to Oceania, combat that kind of tiredness. You'll know all about this,
Can confirm,
Lou.
It's a difficult journey for sure.
Very much. Adjusting to a new time zone, playing against players outside of your region as well. So a little bit of different play styles and preferences in their team building makes choosing the team that you pick a little bit more difficult than the players that that you can face in your own region, and then coming back to do it all over again in Europe.
Well, that's the thing. All of these different experiences will help you build resilience. And we've talked a little bit, David and I on the broadcast, about how we're in this Day 2 Swiss kind of format we've got going on in regionals now. And that is a whole different ball game in terms of that endurance that you need to have at an event. It's not only about getting through to top cut on the second day, you actually have to go through these extra Swiss rounds as well. So be able to have that kind of determination and motivation to stay focused throughout the whole competition and get through to this point is something that will help build that character and expertise in our trainers.
And it's certainly going to go a long way into the World Championships this year, of course. All of these trainers fighting for their championship points to be able to go to Yokohama, Japan. What's even more sort of recent, I suppose, or sooner in their tournament lives is the stipend for the North American International Championships that we've just started being in the rating zone for. So these trainers are earning the potential to be able to go out to compete in North America as well at this point.
Well, that's the thing. We didn't get a Latin America International Championships for VGC in the 2023 season. We did have Oceania literally 7 days ago. And then I think at the minute, all eyes are pointing to the European Championships held in April in London. And again, that was the venue that hosted the World Championships most recently in August. And it's where a lot of, Pokemon history was made, champions were crowned. And we're going to see in a few months' time who our European champions will be. And a lot of the players at the event today, I think, will be, hoping to try and get into those finishes as well.
They certainly will be. And everyone here is ecstatic to be able to see who's going to be making it to the top of the European International Championships, especially with the player numbers that we're getting in Europe, North America these days in our regionals. We've had over 600 players playing in Bochum today and yesterday. So I can only imagine the numbers of players that will be vying to compete for those top spots in European internationals.
And it's not just the Masters division as well. Juniors and seniors are having their numbers rising up as well, with more, young Pokemon trainers getting into the competitive side of things and wanting to test their skills and battle to be the very best. Again, it's not just the video game. Pokemon Go has, really jumped out onto the scene over the past year or so. And again, it's a great one to be able to spectate alongside, of course, the classic trading card game as well.
And Pokemon Go has had a great tournament this time around as well. We heard in the backstage, maybe you heard a few roars from the crowd as the champion of the Pokemon Go division was crowned a champion, making their way all the way through the losers bracket to win in the grand finals against the winner of the winners finals. I think I'm saying that correctly.
I'm glad we get to stick to Swiss, I'm going to be honest.
Double elimination is a whole different kettle of fish.
It definitely is, but as our good commentator friend Adam Doricott would say, that's the Cinderella story you often get when you can make that run through losers bracket and actually take it down at the champion title. Of course, with the Swiss rounds, we don't have double elimination as such, but we now are in single elimination. And these players have had to battle out in that top 8 in order to get through to top 4, and this is really where the tournament lifelines are on edge. Again, the match, as you can see on your screen, we're going to be featuring is that right-hand side of the bracket with Markus versus Aurélien. And these are two players that we've been able to showcase already and build their stories a little bit coming into this competition. Really well-known players, very formidable opponents for each other, but the teams are definitely going to be, I think, some hot contention for each other.
They are, and I think, looking back at what we've seen from both of these players, Aurélien playing a pretty well-rounded team, I think, and being able to have a lot of different options at their disposal. That's really going to be pretty impactful coming to this stage of the tournament, because you don't want to be running up to someone when your tournament life is on the line and just think, hang on a second, I haven't got an answer for that thing.
Well, I mean, the one key thing, obviously, Markus has got going is this Iron Jugulus, a Pokemon that I think a lot of people have counted out as not being a very viable Paradox Pokemon, but he's already been able to showcase it to great effect. Talking of showcases, let's take a look at the accolades of these players. Just to recap quickly, if you've only just tuned in, or if you've been living under a rock and don't know who these players are. Markus, a German national champion in 2014, UK nationals in 2015. I think you know something about UK nationals yourself as well, Ben.
Certainly.
World's top 4 in 2016, that one you alluded to earlier, and then in terms of regionals, Leipzig champion in 2017.
And of course, Oceania top 16 for Aurélien just 1 week ago. Skills clearly very sharp in the Series 2 format, as well as some fantastic results in the seniors division, already playing at the North American International Championships and getting to the top 8 of the World Championships in the senior division just last year.
Yeah, this isn't just participation on Aurélien's front. These are top place finishes. Absolutely incredible to have on your roster. Let's dive deeper into these teams, though, for the top 4 match. There it is, the Iron Jugulus, and another quirky choice in the form of that Gothitelle. We often do see Gothitelle paired up with possibly a Perishong user. We saw Wolf Glick win the Orlando Regional Championships with Gothitelle and Screamtail. No Screamtail this time, but another controversial choice in the form of that Iron Jugulus.
And I really love the Iron Jugulus and what it's trying to do. Booster Energy, we know, is a speed boosting variant. So making sure it's already, really nice and speedy to be able to set up Tailwind for the partner Pokemon and boost up their speed so that they can attack next in front of their opponents and put a lot of pressure on, especially with that choice specs Golden Go. Aurélien, on the other hand, getting that combination of Mousehold and Dragonite that I've been so excited to feature over and over again through this tournament. I believe Dragonite was one of the key Pokemon in Aurélien's match in day 1. So looking forward to seeing that coming back into the fore. Yeah,
step over, Annihilate. Dragonite is my new partner, says the mice to the Pokemon. And I think that's the key thing, particularly when you're running that inner focus variant of the Dragonite. You don't have that multi-scale to fall back on to give you that extra boost when it comes to defensive capability. So the Friend Guard on that Mousehold kind of helps to fill that deficit a little bit.
Yeah, so why not just have both at the end of the day, and that's such a great way to build your teams. And we're seeing it right here coming out on turn 1. Mousehold and Dragonite coming out for Aurélien, and Iron Jugulus and Golden Go coming out for Markus.
Yes, and of course Iron Jugulus in a position where it can start nice and easy here for Markus to try and get something like that Tailwind up and try and gain a little bit of speed advantage. Once again, we've seen the Golden Go time and time again be able to get some big damage off with something like a Make It Rain. Instead, defensive plays from Markus here, just going straight for a Protect, wanting to protect his Paradox Pokemon here, as the Mousehold matches it as well with a Protect of its very own, still enabling that Friend Guard to help out the Dragonite in this turn. Golden Go is going to click that Make It Rain button, obviously not dealing any damage to that opposing Mousehold, but will connect down onto that opposing Dragonite. It only does about a quarter of damage though, Friend Guard really paying off, and of course for its troubles, Golden Go is going to have to take that special attack drop.
A fantastic protect there from Markus, just making sure that Iron Jugulus doesn't take any unnecessary damage there. And you can see the effect of that Friend Guard and the Assault Vest coming out on the Dragonite, really not doing any damage whatsoever, especially for a choice specs Golden Go. Now that Golden Go has a special attack drop and is going to be locked into launching those Make It Rains onto Aurélien's side of the field, and that gives Aurélien a little bit more breathing room, because now effectively that Golden Go no longer is holding a choice specs.
Yes, that's very true. We've got the Air Slash coming out from the Iron Jugulus, though, going to connect down onto that opposing Mousehold. It gets the flinch as well. It's not able to move in this turn, and Golden Go is free to Make It Rain all day long. Not enough to be able to get the KO. That drop in the special attack really kind of putting a dent in Markus's plans in order to get that knockout. Ice Spinner this time will connect on that Iron Jugulus and do over 50% to it.
That's really respectable damage actually on Iron Jugulus, one of the Pokemon that does have quite a few stats at its disposal, and certainly wouldn't be expecting the Dragonite to be doing quite as much damage as that. So maybe a little window into how Aurélien has trained their Dragonite there in this turn. As it stands though, Mousehold getting the flinch, wasn't able to go for something like a Super Fang into the Iron Jugulus, and seeing that the Iron Jugulus took more than 50% of its health means that it likely would have saved itself from getting knocked out.
Yeah, that's a great observation. The double up would have been able to remove that Pokemon from the field. Markus, identifying that it's under threat, switches it out for the face of this Gothitelle. The Mousehold this time going for Protect, and Nulla Make It Rain would have been able to get the knockout against it, even despite the drops. So a nice defensive play by Aurélien here. Again, the Make It Rain this time is going to connect onto that Dragonite, but unfortunately with the Golden Go, it's getting less and less threatening with each turn of these attacks.
It is, but still going to be able to knock out the Mousehold, I'd wager. Ice Spinner coming into the Gothitelle is going to be able to do a decent chunk of damage, certainly damage that you want to be doing onto that Gothitelle, and leftovers recovering a little bit of health. So Gothitelle in quite a nice position here, and I really like the Gothitelle switching because it stops that Mousehold actually being able to leave the field. It's on really low health now, and even though the Golden Go has dropped its special attack so much, probably will still be able to remove it. And that gives Markus a lot of breathing room in the later game because it removed that Follow Me and Super Fang threat from the field.
Yeah, not a Perish Trap, but a Mouse Trap this time to try and catch the KO against the Mousehold. Of course, Golden Go in a great position to start dealing a little bit more damage, but the issue you've got as well with this Dragonite, it's got the Assault Vest, so those Make It Rains are really not going to be dealing too much damage. I like the fact Gothitel's just going for a Protect here, just making sure that it's going to be able to support Golden Go going through a little later. Super Fang being the item move of choice, not going to be able to connect due to that Protect. And nice defensive plays by Markus all round. As Golden Go just does what it does best, Makes It Rain, gets a knockout, and now does put that Dragonite in a really precarious situation, Assault Vest or not.
It does indeed, and I really like that Protect on the Gothitelle because the Super Fang can't actually launch its way into the Golden Go. What can is that Dragon Claw doing a nice little bit of damage, but unfortunately Dragonite's move pool just doesn't quite allow it to do the damage that you want to be able to do to that Golden Go.
Yep, that's true. It's definitely not the Pokemon that you need to counter the Golden Go. I guess one key thing for Aurélien here is the Golden Go isn't exactly very threatening. But speaking of threatening things at this point in time, the Great Tusk is something that's going to be able to deal huge damage to that Golden Go. I wouldn't be surprised to see Markus switch it out here just to preserve it to bring it back later on. Or it could be the opportunity that, you know, I don't mind it going down because it will give me that free switch.
I think the real Pokemon that I'd be targeting down now at the moment if I was Aurélien or in Aurelien's shoes is that Gothitelle. It's just gone for a Protect, and you want to be able to break that Shadow Tag ability. Again, talking about freedom of play, Gothitelle just allows a lot of utility in getting that Shadow Tag and trapping Pokemon on the field.
Yep, that's a great observation, and that's why Gothitelle has left the field, I think, understanding that it is going to be under threat from the onslaught that Aurélien is capable of dishing out. Speaking of damage, we have got the Ground Terror on this Great Tusk, a fantastic Terror typing we've seen in order to add a little bit more punch to these ground type moves, Headlong Rush or Earthquake being the key ones we're looking for. Earthquake, a great choice. You're next to a Dragonite. It's not going to be affected due to its flying type, nor is the Iron Jugulis. Really, it is all eyes down onto that Golden Go, just trying to remove it from the field.
And it's going to definitely be able to do that. That Golden Go is going to be going back to Markus. Earthquake easily picking up the knockout. And a Dragon Claw follow-up from that Dragonite is going to be enough to pick up the KO on that Iron Jugulis. So regardless of the switch, Gothitelle would have been able to take a lot of damage from that Dragon Claw. But as it stands, yeah, Dragon Claw just enough to pick up the knockout there.
And then Pokemon that's coming out now as well. We've obviously got the Gothitelle, but we're seeing that fourth Pokemon out from Markus as well, which is the Iron Hands. And that is a Pokemon that does not want to face down against something like the Great Tusk. The one utility Markus still has is that Terra typing, though. And Iron Hands, as we got a little sneak preview there, is running that Terra Grass. And that could be a nice defensive utility switch here for Markus. It
can, but, you know, when you're staring down a Dragonite and a Great Tusk there, even the Grass-type Terra is going to have, going to struggle to be able to do what you need to do. Iron Hands, though, this turn stopping anything from happening from that Great Tusk and getting a fake out into it, stopping any more damage.
Yeah, I like the fake out here. You obviously break the Focus Sash on that Great Tusk as well, and as Gothitelle twists the dimensions, you now kind of throw the speed into your favor also. So Iron Hands might now have the capability to go for something like a Drain Punch, try and, you know, just deal with this Iron Hands a little bit more. Being ground type, obviously something like the Wild Charge isn't going to do any damage. You can always go for the close combat, but you're then going to drop your defense and special defense and leave yourself very vulnerable to a follow-up from something like the Dragonite.
Right, and, you know, this Gothitelle Psychic is actually probably going to be able to do quite a bit of work against the Great Tusk because it doesn't have that fantastic special defense stats. We are seeing that Terra Grass coming out this turn from the Iron Hands and going to be able to make sure it's not going to take as much damage from an Earthquake. Protect, though, coming out from the Gothitelle, making sure it's not going to be taking any more damage.
Yeah, giving the spotlight to that Iron Hands to get up to the Mischief. It's able to get the KO on that Dragonite with a nicely timed Wild Charge here. Of course, Great Tusk, if it is going for that ground type move, isn't going to do anything to the Gothitelle, so it's a nice protect, and the Grass Terror is going to protect that Iron Hands a little bit more. It is going to be the Headlong Rush here, and it was targeting down into the Iron Hands, but will still connect, do a little chunk of damage, but I think the critical thing here for Markus is due to Headlong Rush dropping the defense and special defense of that Great Tusk, it's now going to be even more vulnerable to something like the Psychic, as you mentioned, Ben.
It is, and any fighting moves coming out from Markus's side of the field are going to do quite a lot more damage. Great Tusk, known as a Pokemon that can deal with those physical attacks pretty well, but not when its defenses are dropped. We've got the Iron Bundle coming out here as the last Pokemon for Aurélien, and quite a speedy Pokemon coming out at this stage. Not the best to be seeing in the Trick Room environment, where Gothitelle and Iron Hands are going to be taking the front foot in this damage race between these two trainers.
Yes, that's the thing. This is not the environment the Penguin wants to be in. It is naturally speedy, but then got the boost as well due to its Quark Drive, and it is obviously not running a Focus Sash as it's got that boosted energy, so it is going to be a little bit vulnerable. I think wise by Aurélien to go for the Protect on the Great Tusk, but the Iron Hand's able to get the one-hit KO against that Iron Bundle, sitting there exposed on the Trick Room field. Really nice knockout there for Markus. Of course, you're going to have to take a chunk of recoil, but you are still in the game.
And I love that charm coming out from the Gothitelle, just lowering the Great Tusk's attack, making it so that only really a critical hit would be able to knock out the Iron Hands in this scenario, of course, as well as the Gothitelle, protecting the Gothitelle from something like a headlong rush. At this stage, though, there's a couple of turns left of Trick Room, and Protect gets less and less likely to be successful in subsequent turns. Aurélien knows that and has forfeited, and it will be Markus that takes game one in this top four set.
I absolutely love the way Markus piloted that game one. You know, it looked a little bit dicey there when Aurélien was able to get that double KO, and then suddenly Markus is left with just the Gothitelle, not the most offensive Pokemon, and then paired up with the Iron Hands. It looks to have a little bit of a difficult matchup with the Iron Hands against the Great Tusk. But the key thing for me was the fact that you still had that flexibility to be like, right, I went fast mode before, Iron Jugulis is gone. How about I switch things up, go for that Trick Room mode? And suddenly that was the environment that Iron Hands could thrive in. Able to get that critical knockout against the Dragonite, and then onto the Iron Bundle. And then at the end of the day, that Grass Terror really was putting the pressure on Great Tusk to try and deliver a KO, even though it was difficult.
And you've got to give props to the Golden Go in that scenario for that particular end game. I mean, the Tailwind plus Golden Go is a tale as old as Series 1, so to speak. And it works for a reason. Lots of damage, fast offensive pressure that you're putting on your opponent, but equally chipping down your opponent and making sure that they are within range of Pokemon. Like even Gothitelle in that end game would have been able to take key knockouts there if it needed to for Markus. So a really nice way of preparing the end game quite far in advance.
Yeah, that's very true. I think one issue Aurélien had there as well was the mouse hold was just played a little bit too defensively. We saw it trying to go for those Super Fangs, but to no avail. And I feel like if Aurélien had been able to connect onto those, then it might have been a slightly better situation there. If you're Markus, though, however, going into this game too, do you see any reason to change up your full Pokemon, or do you want to maybe shake things up?
I think I want to use the Golden Go quite a lot in this scenario. I'd like to see maybe Markus lead out with the Iron Hands to support it in the early game and use that rather than necessarily in the end game, because I would expect a switch up here from Aurélien. And one of the things that had a little bit of trouble was that Iron Jugulis. We saw the flinch from Air Slash in game one, and if that hadn't gone off, Markus would have been in a bit more of a difficult situation where Iron Jugulis wouldn't have been able to offer the support that it did. So maybe like to see a little bit of that coming out into the early game. For Aurélien, I'd like to see that Iron Bundle.
Well, we're going to see a Golden Go apiece. You asked for one. There are two now, Ben. We have got the Mouse Hold and the Golden Go on the field for Aurélien. And then for Markus, it is once again the Iron Jugulis getting its speed boosted by its Quark Drive, paired up with the Golden Go.
Way back in round one, we saw Matt Maynard being in a similar situation and just it was an Annihilate rather than a Golden Go, but just went for the Shadow Ball in front of a Mouse Hold and Golden Go and just, played the risky play. It paid off in that scenario, but not something I'd really recommend here. There's a lot of pressure on the field here. But one of the moves that Iron Jugulis does have at its disposal is that Snarl, and that's going to be really effective against Golden Go on Aurélien's side of the field. So something to watch out for, because you can't follow me that Snarl away.
Yes, that's true. The spread move will, null and void a follow me. You could see Markus almost hesitating, being like, do I want to go for Make It Rain? Tapped down to the Shadow Ball button, but decided against it. Instead, has really doubled down on that Make It Rain, going for the Steel Terror here. Oh, no, that's actually on it is on Markus' side. It is going to be the Steel Terror, trying to deal that extra bit of damage with the Make It Rain. The Snarl gets a cheeky critical hit as well, and is critically going to lower the special attack of both those opposing Pokemon, most notably on that Golden Go. This time, the little mice, they're angry. They managed to get the connection onto the Iron Jugulis, but here is the Golden Go. It's like, you can lower my special attack once. I'm going to go for the Nasty Plot and boost it up. So now it's sitting at +1. The Golden Go on Markus' side has a job to do. It needs to be able to get the knockout. It gets it on the Mouse Hold.
It does indeed. And Actually pretty respectable damage coming out there on the Golden Go as well. So putting it in range of a little bit of a double up going into the next turn. So Aurélien really has to be careful how they play the following turns, especially now that they've lost the ability to follow me away any single target attacks like that Shadow Ball. Unfortunately for Markus, not going to be able to change up moves here. He's locked into the Make It Rain. So a little bit less of a risk, and certainly a reason to bring in your Great Tusk to just make sure you're putting pressure on Markus's Golden Go here.
Yeah, that's true. Great Tusk in a great position to go for something like a Headlong Rush and apply pressure into that Golden Go. If you're Markus, though, you might want to switch it out, not only so it won't go down to anything this Great Tusk wants to throw its way, but also to reset any special attack drops. But no, it's brave, it's bold, it's staying on the field. There's a Tailwind up as well, thanks to Iron Jugular, so the speed is now doubled on Markus' side of the field, and it goes for that Make It Rain. Doesn't get a KO, but look how much damage it does to Great Tusk.
Yeah, that's as close as you needed to get to the Focus Sash there on the Great Tusk. Doing so much damage. In return, though, Golden Go is going to be knocked out to a Headlong Rush coming out from that Great Tusk. We are going to have a Make It Rain follow-up, I'm sure, at one stage of increased special attack, likely to be able to pick up another knockout onto Markus, and it's a double KO in this turn. But crucially, Markus still has the Tailwind up on the field, so whatever he has in the pack, it better be trained to be speedy.
Yeah, dropping that Trick Room mode in the favor of a more fast offensive pressure, and I really like that flexibility in Markus' team building here. We saw Trick Room so nicely piloted in game one to get that victory in what looked like a difficult endgame, and now as Markus approaches, albeit another difficult endgame in this game too, Tailwind is up in the field, and you've got two very heavy hitters, Iron Bundle that can hit hard on the special attacking side of things, and then the Great Tusk that can hit on the physical side. Iron Bundle as well being very, very speedy, and rocking something like the Icy Wind is going to be able to, fingers crossed, connect on both Pokemon. It'll definitely get the knockout onto that Great Tusk.
And this is a situation where you can kind of think about using Earthquake and doing a little bit of damage to your own Iron Bundle just to make sure, because, you know, in the top four, you definitely don't want your Icy Wind to miss and for it to cost you a game. Not always necessary. The one thing that's quite nice here is that the Icy Wind does cover a potential Dragonite switch in the back as well.
That's a great observation. It's not really safe when there's an Icy Wind on the field. It's obviously going into the Protect of the Golden Go, a wise defensive play here, but it will connect onto that Great Tusk and get the knockout. I think now, you know, this is an interesting situation because Aurélien has the opportunity to bring a Pokemon in from the back, depending on what it is. Maybe if it's something like that Volcarona, because yeah, we haven't seen what the fourth and final one is, then that's a Pokemon that isn't going to want it, it's not going to worry so much about taking those ice type moves.
No, we'll have to see exactly what it is coming out now. It is indeed the Dragonite. Iron Bundle, definitely not the Pokemon that you'd want to see, but if I'm not mistaken, Aurélien hasn't committed their Terra just yet in the match, so we know that Dragonite can go for its Terra Flying, launching out a lot more damage, reducing its weakness to the Iron Bundle that it's facing down against. Quite good against the Great Tusk as well in this situation, but you know, with Tailwind up on the field, with Icy Wind, possibly being able to knock out the Golden Go on Aurélien's side of the field, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle here. You're
right, though. It will reduce its weakness to ice from 4 times to 2 times effective. That's the one issue. Is it's also, it's not multi-scale, right? So this inner focus Dragonite is going to have a little bit of a difficult time. We actually see the Golden go for the Protect here. You know, Aurélien really trying to preserve this Pokemon, stalling out all these Tailwind turns. Freeze Dry will connect. It does about, just over a third of damage there as Great Tusk goes for the Headlong Rush into the protecting Golden Go. So unfortunately, Great Tusk not able to get the knockout here and build a little bit momentum. But here's that Terra Blast. Like you mentioned, going for the Terra Fly means you're going to be able to pack a really heavy punch into that Iron Bundle, but it's not enough to get a knockout.
This is a really difficult scenario there for Markus, because that Iron Bundle to me looks like it might be in extreme speed range.
Me too.
And that is a fantastic end game position to be in for Aurélien. Getting the double protect, a little bit fortunate there for the Golden Go, but I think it really does boil down to the Dragonite being a Pokemon that Great Tusk really struggles with, and getting that Terra Blast onto the Iron Bundle for just a little bit of damage is definitely something that you want to be pushing your way into. Now there's a question whether the Iron Bundle goes for a protect or not. Do you take the risk and target down the Great Tusk if you're Aurélien?
Oh, it does go for that protect. You kind of have to, like you said, the extreme speed just too tempting to click. Great Tusk is actually going to go for the Earthquake. We're not seeing the extreme speed come out here at all on Aurélien's side. Iron Bundle wisely protecting as his partner goes for the move that will hit all Pokemon on the field. It will get the knockout onto that Golden Go, but this is a great opportunity for Aurélien to capitalize on thinking, hey, this Iron Bundle's definitely going to protect. I can target down the Great Tusk with my Dragonite, and that's what we're seeing here. The Terra Blast is going to connect down, and you know that Great Tusk is running the Life Orb, so it's going to get the knockout. There's no Focus Sash to hold on to.
That is a fantastic KO there for Aurélien, and we'll have to see if the extreme speed is indeed enough to pick up the knockout on this Iron Bundle. Even if it's not, we've seen how much damage Freeze Dry does to this Dragonite, and it's not looking like it's quite enough to pick up the 2-hit KO. A double protect there failing on Iron Bundle on Marcus's side of the field, and it will be Aurélien that is taking the second game of the set.
Yes, advancing to a Game 3 here in the top 4 of the Bochum Regional Championships. I think this is the interesting thing we've got going on now. You know, Marcus came out in that Game 1, had the beautiful flexibility of going to that Trick Room mode, and in Game 2, looked to be in a great position having set up that Tailwind. But the masterful play by Aurélien, not falling for the bait, realizing that Iron Bundle was in such a dangerous position that Marcus had to click the protect. You know, hindsight's one of those things. You could always look back and be like, oh, I could have gone for something like the Freeze Dry here, but you had to cover for it because also the Dragonite could always just go for it again in that following turn.
It can, and yeah, that's I think looking back a few more turns from that scenario, there definitely could have been a scenario where you go for the Icy Wind rather than the Freeze Dry in the early turns of that position to try and knock out the Golden Go with the Icy Wind while getting some close combat damage with that Life Orb Great Tusk. That might have put you in a position where Great Tusk was able to pick up the knockout there. I mean, okay, Aurélien did get the double protect, and that might have thwarted that particular line. But you never know how the game's going to turn out. You click different buttons, different things happen. So, you know, taking a step back, I think, you know, you've got to be maximizing everything against these high caliber players.
Oh, definitely. And it was a great observation by Aurélien to realize that the double protect was what was needed in that point, you know, kind of realizing the Golden Go needs to be preserved because while it's on the field, it's a threat. And it forced the Great Tusk to have to target it down, kind of leaving the Dragonite to be able to sit there and deal out big damage with the Terra Blast. Whereas if the Golden Go went down, then it really becomes this 2v1 situation and Dragonite's not going to be able to fly out of this. So I think that was a really nice call going for that double protect. Amazing to get it, and that's why we're now in a Game 3.
And looking at Game 3, it's really strange because I'm looking at the way that the early game went in Game 1, and I kind of feel like Marcus just absolutely dominated the early game and Aurélien had to pull it all the way back with that Dragonite in the end game. But equally, Aurélien won that game. So, like, I'm trying to think, like, the Golden Go didn't feel like it was in a great scenario to do enough work to make it worthwhile going into Game 3, but it did lead to a worthwhile end game. It'd be interesting to see if Aurélien is going to be sticking with it this game. Yeah,
well, it's Golden Go in the mouse hold for Aurélien, and then on Marcus' side of the field, the Gothitel's back in action, paired up with the Great Tusk.
And the Great Tusk is going to be putting lots of pressure on the field. We've already seen it go for Earthquake. We know that Gothitelle can go for a Protect here. So there is the opportunity for Great Tusk to just get a really powerful Earthquake and do a lot of damage to this Golden Go, though. But one of the great things about leading Gothitelle is you get to kind of look at the Pokemon that your opponent has on the field and just use that to adjust your board state and see if you want to make any changes. Against that Mousehole Golden Go, though, any switches are going to be under lots and lots of threat here.
I mean, you can really see what Marcus is going for here, I think, hoping that Golden Go is going to leave the field. It doesn't, however. The Mousehold is going to go for the Protect, not going for a Follow Me or anything like that, as is the Golden Go here. So we're not going to see any switches. Irrelevant of what Marcus has done, nothing's going to play out in this turn. It really is just a nice opportunity for Aurélien to maybe scout out what Marcus was going for. You could see the close combat going down into the Mousehold. That would have done some big damage. But this is the critical thing, the charm from the Gothitelle going down into the Golden Go.
And it's a nice move. If that Golden Go felt like it was had too much pressure being put on from the Great Tusk, and especially with that Life Orb, with the opportunity to go Terra Ground onto the Golden Go, may even be enough to pick up the knockout on that Golden Go, even with the Friend Guard from that Mousehold. So I really like that defensive play from Aurélien, just kind of baiting out what Markus was thinking, how he was going to be approaching that game, because even though the Shadow Tiger's in play, that Golden Go being the Ghost type can still switch out.
Yeah, that's very true, and I think Aurélien getting into Markus's head a little bit here in this Game 3. We are going to see the Terra Ground on the Great Tusk, though, is ready for action and to get some key knockouts here. Gothitelle going for the Protect this time. It might well be an Earthquake coming out from this Great Tusk. The Baby Doll Eyes is going to come out, though. It's going to weaken the attack. That's something Great Tusk is not going to be happy about, but it is going to be able to go for the spread damage, connecting down into both the Golden Go and that opposing Mousehold. And this is where Friend Guard's going to really, really come in clutch, I think, for Aurélien. Just going to be able to keep the Golden Go on the field, as you can see here, not able to get a knockout, as Shadow Ball is the move choice from that Golden Go. It was going into the Protect, however, so Great Tusk able to survive.
And this is a crucial turn now, because you can see how much of an impact that Baby Doll Eyes had. Looking at the HP ranges, it looked like Mousehold may have been able to hang on there, but Golden Go certainly wouldn't have been able to. But now that Gothitelle just been protected, you don't want to be Earthquaking it again if you're Markus, but what you probably got in the back is that Iron Jugulus, and that is the flying type, so would be immune to any damage from the Earthquake coming out here. And now the question is whether Aurélien can see whether that's going to be coming and adjust to it accordingly.
We can actually see Iron Jugulus has been left at home. There is the Golden Go and the Iron Hands there for Markus. So actually he doesn't have the flexibility to switch in here. You don't want to Stealth Earthquake either Iron Hands or the Golden Go. So that's not a safe situation for the Great Tusk here. Iron Hands is going to join the field though, maybe apply a little bit of fake out pressure going into the next turn, as the Golden Go, I think, wisely protects in the face of this Great Tusk.
It does, and that's a really nice position for Markus to be getting in. Super Fang going into the Great Tusk is going to be bringing it down to just under half of its health left. And correctly predicting that there wasn't going to be any Follow Me coming out from that Mousehold, goes for the Headlong Rush into that Golden Go. And yeah, really nice position now, because you've got the fake out on the field from that Iron Hands, and it is going to be able to stop any Follow Me coming out from that Mousehold. If I was Golden Go right now, I'd be scared. Yes,
definitely. I'd be feeling a little dicey, and that's why it is leaving the field. A really nice observation there by Aurélien, knowing it needs to be in the back and saved for later. In its place, however, it's going to be that Dragonite. Again, a Pokemon that's not going to worry about any ground-type moves, because it is Flying Dragon type. It's going to avoid all of those by being in the air. And Markus making adjustments too with the Gothitelle.
And the Gothitelle coming in is going to be able to put another fake out on the field, and particularly impactful because the Mousehold now won't be able to switch out. Headlong Rush going into the Dragonite slot, so no damage on that slot. A correct prediction from Aurélien, but now the Dragonite and the Mousehold are going to be locked to the field as long as Gothitelle is remaining.
Yep, that's right. They get pinned down in this situation. And again, now if you're this Great Tusk, what do you want to go for? Because neither of your ground-type moves are going to connect into that Dragonite, but it was a Pokemon that was really disruptive for Markus in that game too. You need to get rid of the Mousehold though. That Friend Guard is going to be really frustrating to deal with, particularly when you've got bulky Pokemon like the Dragonite partnered next to it.
And I'm actually not 100% sure of this mechanic, whether or not the charm is stopped by Inner Focus. I don't believe it is. If it's not, then that would be a great position to be able to use it onto that Dragonite, as a Super Fang goes into the Gothitelle, bringing it down to half of its health, and Headlong Rush is easily enough to pick up the KO on that Mousehold.
It does get the knockout, but now Dragonite is free to possibly double up into this Gothitelle. Aurélien really does not want Trick Room to go off here, and that is what Markus has clicked in. Ice Spin is going to connect, and it's actually going to go down into that Great Tusk. It gets a knockout, but now Gothitelle is free to set up that Trick Room, and we know that Iron Hands is lurking in the back.
It is, as well as that Golden Go as well, and depending on how that Golden Go is trained, it could be a little bit slower and maybe going to be underspeeding the Dragonite. Maybe it's going to be saved in the back for Markus. Maybe the game plan is to do a little bit of damage with this Gothitelle and the Iron Hands, and just allow the Golden Go in the back to make it rain a bit later in the match.
Yeah, it looks like Markus might be bringing in that Golden Go here while Trick Room has been set up. It is, of course, rocking the choice spec, so it is going to be able to deal a heavy punch. It might be, like you said, that little bit slower, a little bit bulkier in order to survive a couple of hits, and it can make up for its special attack by running with that choiced item. One Pokemon that Aurélien still has, though, is, of course, that Great Tusk, and it can apply great pressure to this Golden Go.
Great Tusk. Great pressure.
It's pretty great.
It's doing everything it needs to do. Unfortunately, though, in this position, Great Tusk is going to be falling foul of the Psychic and Make It Rain coming out from the Golden Go. It's definitely not going to appreciate either of those bits of damage coming out. And now, looking at this endgame, we're in a situation where the Pokemon that Markus has remaining, with the exception of Gothitelle, not really usually one of the offensive Pokemon, are able to deal with this Dragonite and do damage in a way that unfortunately, Iron Bundle wasn't able to do in Game 2, so this adjustment to the game plan looks very, very good for Markus.
One thing you have to contend with as well is that Great Tusk is running the Focus Sash on Aurélien's side of things, so Markus will have to double up into it if he wants to remove it from the field to enable the Golden Go to shine on his side of the battlefield. There is, of course, going to be the Terra Ground on Aurelien's side as well, because it wants to stay here, wants to drop its weakness to that Psychic that Gothitelle has gone for, so it's not going to be able to deal super effective damage, but it still does so much and critically breaks that Focus Sash for the Golden Go. Gothitelle able to survive the Dragon Claw, and here, let's see, Make It Rain gets the knockout and does a significant chunk to that Dragonite too.
What a fantastic knockout there for Markus, knocking out that Great Tusk in one turn. I really like how Aurélien approached that, though, because, you know, with Trick Room on the field and, you know, a Pokemon in the back, you've got to do something to advance your board position. And maybe thinking that the Great Tusk was going to go for a Protect and therefore Markus targeting into the Dragonite creates an opportunity for that Great Tusk to make use of its Focus Sashing, knock out that Golden Go in one.
That's very true, and I mean, I know that Great Tusk doesn't have the best special defense in the world, but that Psychic still did more than I was thinking, and you know, you kind of think maybe it would be able to survive up against something like a Make It Rain, but when you've got two special attackers into a Great Tusk, the cards are really stacked against you. The Golden Go of Aurélien is now still back onto the field.
It is, and probably going to be able to launch out another attack in this situation. The Gothitelle going for a protecting itself, probably from an extreme speed coming out from that Dragonite, but no, only a Dragon Claw going in to protect there. And we saw in the previous turns that the Golden Go on Markus' side of the field was the slower of the two, therefore going first in Trick Room. Make It Rain, though, not able to pick up the KO, and this Shadow Ball nearly picks up the KO on Markus' Golden Go, but isn't quite strong enough to get there.
I think this is the critical thing. Aurélien is down to, you know, their last two remaining Pokemon, and they're both at very precarious points of HP here. Yes, we saw the Golden Go on Aurelien's side move first, and it, you know, the Golden Go on Markus' side wasn't able to get the KO with Make It Rain. I'm sorry, it was able to follow up, but the Iron Hands is still in the back here. The Extreme Speed is going to be able to get the KO onto that Gothitelle, but as we were saying, Markus' own Golden Go here in prime position to try and get a double KO. It gets the Make It Rain, it gets the KO onto the opposing Golden Go here, and now the Dragonite sitting on just a slither of HP. We know that Markus is able to now bring that Iron Hands in from the back, and just taking a quick look at the Dragonite on Aurelien's side, those are all single target type attacks. Markus just has to click buttons in order to lock a place in the finals.
What a way to end up this set. Iron Hands coming in, and it's going to be the Iron Hands launching out any attack into the Dragonite that's going to be picking up the KO there.
Fantastic play by Markus Stadter, who has now earned his place in the grand finals here at the Bochum Regional Championships. I love to see this. Trick Room has been so dominant on Alex Soto's team, but then we've also got Markus piloting it to great success to win games 1 and 3.
Exactly that. It proves that you don't have to have a team completely dedicated to Trick Room to make fantastic use of it. Congratulations to Markus for making it into the finals. A player no stranger to sitting in that grand finals chair, of course. And look at him celebrating. He is absolutely ecstatic.
You can really see what this means to him, particularly as he is the last German remaining in our top cut. To be able to get into the finals here on home turf is always an amazing accolade. And actually, when he was playing his top 8 game, I saw the whole German community around him trying to get an eye in on his match. And that kind of support and camaraderie is something that it's just something you can't make up, and it's just such an amazing thing to have in the Pokemon community, and it's one of the reasons why these events are so magical. And I know that that group is only going to get bigger as Markus tends to that grand final. It's going to be a lot of eyes on him.
There is going to be a lot of eyes as well. And yeah, looking at this tournament, it's a great opportunity because Markus has been playing for so long. There are many older faces of VGC. I saw someone that I played in Bochum in the national championships, German national championships.
You're showing your age now.
Yeah, I'm showing my age. But I saw a player that I lost who actually came the runner-up in that tournament that I haven't seen for the last 10 years because they live down the road and coming to support all of their friends here playing in this regional championships.
And I love that. I just love that about Pokemon events, because we have such an amazing European scene here. You know, we've got events we've got one in the Netherlands coming up as well. We've got one in Malmo and in Turin, I think there is, yes. And it's just amazing to be able to kind of have all these different communities kind of in their local perspectives, and then invite all their friends over, you know, all their, I want to say their rivals as well a little bit, and just be able to battle it out. And that's something that, you know, Markus is going to try and do here, try and take the cup for Germany.
And of course, Aurélien did so to pilot themselves to this stage of the tournament, getting a top 16 finish in the Oceania International Championships, followed by a top 4 finish in the regional championships in Bochum, is no mean feat whatsoever. So they've done absolutely fantastically to graduate from the seniors and dominate in the Masters division.
Definitely one to watch and continue to watch throughout the rest of the season. One thing I just have to credit from Markus' side, and it really was clicking that Trick Room button, because that's what put Aurélien on the back foot. Because I think up until that moment, Aurélien had quite commanding positions in the match, was able to kind of get some key KOs, often some double knockouts in one turn against Markus, but then being able to click that Trick Room button pretty, I don't want to say safely necessarily, because there were some great double ups from Aurélien identifying that Trick Room can't go up, but actually being able to utilize it and then have Iron Hands, particularly in the back of that game 3, I think was just a really nice ball positioning kind of identification from Markus.
Right, and the way that Markus played the Gothitelle to be able to get that Trick Room up as well needs a shout out too. The protects coming out, you know, not just every other turn, but once or twice here and there, just in the key positions to make sure that that Gothitelle had enough health to be able to survive any spread attacks from that Make It Rain coming out from the Golden Go in the early games. And also those single target shadow balls that were really targeting down that Gothitelle, wanting to stop Markus executing his strategy, but Markus was like, hang on a second, I'm just going to keep all of my HP remaining and get myself into a position where I can click that Trick Room button.
And I think a lot of players coming into a tournament want to say which Paradox Pokemon are going to be in the finals, and I don't think anyone called Iron Jugulus. And it's really nice to see that kind of creativity coming through. But we have got Markus himself ready on the couch for an interview, so let's hear it from our first finalist.
And we are back with the winner of that top 4 match, Markus Stadter. How are you doing?
Well, I'm obviously very happy that I could come out on top there. Very close game, well played also to Aurélien. And yeah, just really, really happy that I managed to reach finals here.
Yeah, I can imagine you are, definitely. It was a really tough set of those 3 games, and it was really interesting seeing how you were piloting the Iron Jugulus with that Gothitelle as well. What do you feel like has been your most valued Pokemon or your MVP so far?
That's a very good question. I can't even say. I think all pieces of this team, they come together like very, very brilliantly. Yeah, shoutouts to Wolfie for coming up with the 6. And yeah, Iron Jugulus was really, really good in my top 8 game, and also really good in my run today through day 2 Swiss. So definitely an MVP, but also Goldango, Make It Rain got me here. So yeah, it's tough to name an MVP.
I want to mention that Golden Go actually as well, because loads of people are running Nasty Plot, Make It Rain, Shadow Ball stuff, but you've just gone straight for that choice spec set for the instant damage. Like, what was your thought behind that?
Yeah, so as I said, the team was mainly constructed by Wolfie, who's also running it at the moment in the US at regionals. And yeah, he basically said, well, he never really used Goldango so far, but everyone said it was so strong, so he wanted to try it out. And yeah, we came up with this concept of just like Tailwind, Terra Steel, Make It Rain turn 1, which is very, very awkward for the opponent to deal with, because a lot of them have to invest like a Terra to stop their team from taking too much damage. And then if they knock out the Goldango turn 1, then the Great Tusk can come in, and then you're free to like Earthquake or whatever to pick up the pieces. So that's like the main concept. But then we realized, yeah, we also need something against like certain other matchups, and that's when then the Trick Room part joined the team.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, with your match versus Aurélien, noticed the Dragonite came a lot of the time and was kind of the Pokemon that maybe probably gave you the most trouble with that extreme speed. Is that something you've come across up against versus Aurélien before, or versus other Pokemon and teams this weekend?
Yeah, I haven't faced him actually in a tournament, I think. So I'm happy. I've known him for a few years now that we got to play. Yeah, the Dragonite is pretty difficult to deal with, because it's one of the very, very few Pokemon that doesn't need to terrestrialize to still wall kind of the Great Tusk, but also it can take with Assault Vest, it can take Make It Rains. Yeah, the downside of using that Assault Vest set is though you don't really have any like boosting move, you don't really have anything to gain control on the battlefield besides like the priority extreme speed. So I was trying to maybe lock him down with a Gothitelle, get some charms on the Dragon Knight to lock it out of the game. That didn't really happen in our games, but yeah, still it doesn't have Protect, so then whenever I was able to set up the trap and got the Trick Room going, that's when then I could knock it out.
Excellent. So, and you played it expertly too, because the Gothitelle, obviously, with the Shadow Tag, we have seen it with some Perish Trap stuff going on, and I can imagine with Wolfie's kind of input, the Gothitelle is something that he kind of really likes to use as well. Have you used the trap kind of before in previous teams, or how have you been able to pilot it this way round, and how much has it been the effective Pokemon you want it to be? Yeah,
first of all, I want to say that I think this like whole concept, like having Tailwind and Trick Room on the same team, like sometimes I also set them up at the same time for very, very awkward speed numbers, and then also having the Shadow Tag, which is such a powerful ability, but then Gothitelle in itself is like not the strongest Pokemon, so you really need to make sure that you have the right positioning when you lock down your opponent. So that all of that is like pretty complex. So while I focused on you can just Tailwind, make it rain. Like you have the easy game plan, doesn't require so much thinking. But then you also have these, as I showed, I think in the third game, where you try to get a favorable position by trapping something in, then try to set up Trick Room and then bring in the respective sweeper. So I haven't really used Shadow Tag, I think, since 2016 Worlds. I think I used it at a regional, so I've used Shadow Tag in the past, but I think with this team and in this format, it's been more difficult to pull off with Goldango, Fluttermane, and other strong Pokemon. But I think it's pretty strong.
Awesome stuff. So. Sounds like as you've kind of at the finals at this point, you're the first one we know of. We've got another semi-finals going on at the same time currently. I know Alex Stotter's part of that as well, and he's running that kind of scary hard Trick Room team that I think he only lost to Fize so far, who he also now recently beat, and to you as well. So obviously you're kind of going into that match already kind of beat him. You're already beating him. Are you going to do the same sort of thing, or do you feel like there's something Alex can maybe do to kind of stop you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, of course, we'll have to see how that top 4 game goes. Alex definitely very, very strong, piloting this unique hard Trick Room team that I think only he can really use. So yeah, I was able to beat him in the Swiss rounds, but if he made it to the finals again, back-to-back after his Liverpool run, that would be pretty crazy. So I'm sure he would love to take home the crown. But at the same time, I've mentioned this before when I was here on an interview. Like, this is the venue where I won German Nats in 2014. So that's the kind of streak or the history that I want to make here.
Okay, so you've got the home country crowd and the home county crowd and the home venue crowd as well, so that's awesome.
Exactly.
Right, Markus, congratulations on your win at the moment, and good luck in the top 1. Hopefully Goldango can make it rain for yourself, and after the prize money as well, maybe you could also make it rain.
Thank you very much.
That's all right. We're going to go back to a little short break now, when we'll be waiting for the other semi-final to finish, and we'll be back with the finals of the Bochum Regional Championships very shortly.